Vice Mayor, let us bow our heads. Dear God, we thank you for the opportunity to gather here to conduct the city's business. Guide us during our deliberations and give us wisdom concerning the issues that we face. We pray for our soldiers that protect our way of life and put their lives in harm's way. We pray especially this evening for Audrey Baker, wife of Councilman Buddy Baker, and we ask that your healing and comforting hand be upon her. Lord, help us to remember to give you the glory for what we accomplish. Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job, Fred.
Without objection, we'll suspend the calling of the roll and ask the clerk to record the names of the members present throughout the meeting. Is there a motion for adoption of the minutes of the September? With no objection, the minutes of the meeting on September 7th stand approved. Madam Clerk, are there any messages from the mayor?
No, ma'am, there are not.
Thank you. On your desk, you will find a copy of a proposed rule change that we will consider next week. There is also the notice of vacancies, vacancy on the Community Education Commission, and 2 vacancies on the Health and Education Facilities Board vacancies that we will be filling in one of our future meetings. As has been our custom for 2 meetings prior to an election, we will ask candidates to identify themselves and what they're running for. No campaign speeches, but we will start with those on the council, and if anyone is in the audience that is running for an office, please come to the lectern. Councilman Gatto.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. My name is Jim Gatto. I'm a candidate for State House of Representatives, District 60, Antioch, parts of Antioch, and most of Donaldson, Hermitage. Thank you.
Councilman Dominy.
Thank you. I'm Dwayne Dominy, candidate for State House District 59, which includes Tusculum and the Antioch community. Look forward to representing the United Nations of Antioch in Southeast Nashville.
Councilman Coleman.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'm Sam Coleman. I'm running for State Representative of the 60th District, and I appreciate your vote.
If there is anyone in the audience, please come to the lectern.
I'm Daniel Lewis, and I'm running for Tennessee House District 53.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Councilman Stein.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. We have with us tonight, visiting, and as will be regularly, I think, for the remainder of our term, we have 4 members of the Mayor's Youth Council with us, and I would like to acknowledge them. They are brave folks to come out tonight to sit through and watch us when they could be home watching us on TV, and we're delighted to have them. Leon Allen from Hillsborough High School, Mahad Ali from Glencliff, Mary Salu from Glencliff, and Zach Walker from Innsworth. If you would stand up, please, if you are here. Thank you. We're delighted to have you here. Thank you.
Councilman Tigert, do you have a presentation?
Thank you, Madam Chair and council members. It's my distinct honor this evening to recognize a longtime friend and outstanding citizen here in Davidson County. It's going to be hard for me to call her Chris McCarthy, this retiring CEO of Habitat, because when you grow up as a youngster next door to Chrissy Myers, you get to know folks. I knew this young lady was destined for greatness when she organized our neighborhood's first spin the bottle competition. But she has some things to say for me, but she's promised not to. Okay, I just want to pass a few words on about this organization, Habitat for Humanity, and then I think Councilman Holland and Councilman Atkins also want to chime in. But in the 26-year history, 470 affordable homes representing 1,500 family members and 1,000 kids Over 75,000 volunteers mobilized to help build these homes for families. Over $50 million raised in the private sector to put people in homes. The one aspect that I think is most telling of the success of this organization in this economy, Habitat for Humanity today has a less than 1% delinquency rate on their mortgages. So this organization is doing something correct.
Just my experience with Chris has been an absolutely amazing experience. The Providence Park project that was in Paragon Mills literally transformed the area. It was one of the largest habitat projects in Nashville, and it has really just helped our area out, and it was an outstanding project, and the families there are just amazing, and I just want to say a deep thank you for all of the work that you did. It was an amazing project, and we appreciate it.
I just want to say the first ever Habitat Reconstruct house was completed and dedicated yesterday at 704 Meridian Street. A lot of volunteers, Council Lady Will Hoyt, I also saw her name on the register participating there, and just wanted to thank them. And for Eric Helm, he needs a raise.
So it's my honor tonight to honor Chris McCarthy upon her retirement as CEO of Habitat for Humanity, and I'll allow her to introduce her wonderful husband, John, who's looking forward to some home-cooked meals.
Yeah, I hope I don't kill him with the home-cooked meals. Yeah. Thanks. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I'd like to thank Metro Council for this honor on behalf of the tens of thousands of volunteers, donors, staff, board members that make our work possible. I'd like to give a special thank you to Councilman Tigard, Councilman Atkins, Councilman McGuire, and Councilman Holland for their outstanding support of the remarkable Habitat families that we serve. After almost 9 years with Habitat, I'm convinced more than ever that affordable home ownership improves the quality of life of all Nashvillians. And so I challenge all of our leaders in the city to continue to find solutions to help all hardworking families achieve the American dream of home ownership. So thank you for this honor, and Charlie, I'll get you on that spin the bottle thing. Yes. Yeah, I'm happy to introduce Danny Herron, who has joined us today. He is the president of Nashville Habitat and will be taking over as of January 2011. Thank you.
We are now at elections and confirmations. We still have received no nominations for a representative to the Community Education Commission for a not-for-profit adult literacy organization. Councilman Adkins.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The Rules and Confirmations Committee met and considered first the Auditorium Commission, the appointment of Randy Rayburn. The committee voted 9 for and none against, and I move his approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no.
Next was the Charter Revision Committee, the reappointment of former Council Lady Eileen Behan, 10 for, none against, and I move her approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes.
And to note, the reappointment of Dewey Brandstetter was deferred one meeting for that particular, for the Charter Revision. Also, the Farmers Market Commission, Joshua Smith was deferred one meeting, and for the Gas Mechanical Examiner Appeals Board, Kenny Watson was deferred one meeting. Then the committee considered for the Historical Commission the reappointment of Lula Brooks, 10 for, none against, and I move her approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes.
Also on the Historical Commission, the reappointment of former Vice Mayor George Cate, a great honor to have him here with us today. And the committee voted 10 for and none against. Move his approval.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes.
Next was Linda Nguyen for the Historical Commission, the reappointment, 10 for, none against, and I move her approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes.
For the Human Relations Committee, Human Relations Commission, the appointment of Fred Gill was deferred one meeting as well, and that concluded our business, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. When I call your name, please stand and remain standing. Randy Rayburn, Eileen Behan, Lula Brooks, George Cate, and Linda Nguyen. On behalf of the Metropolitan Council, I want to thank you for donating your time and your expertise to our city. Thank you very much.
One of the senior persons here, let me say that when you reach my age, you appreciate being nominated and confirmed for an office that extends 4 years into the future.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Okay, we're now at the point in our agenda for resolutions. The first one is RS 2010-1345, approves a contract between the Metro Board of Health and Financial Marketing Concepts, Inc. to provide a discount prescription drug card to residents of the metropolitan government. Councilmember Bennett.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Councilman Forcom.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hospitals and Health voted to defer this 3-0, one meeting.
Thank you. Councilmember Berry.
Budget and Finance voted to defer as amended 9-4-0 against.
Councilmember Bennett.
Am I allowed to move the amendment at this point?
Yes.
Okay, I would like to move the amendment, please.
Have a motion and a second on the amendment. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Amendment passes.
I would like to defer this for one meeting, please.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor of a one-meeting deferral, please say aye. Opposed, no. Deferral passes. RS 2010-1397 approves an amendment to an intergovernmental agreement between the Metropolitan Government and the Metro Nashville Hospital Authority to make changes to the Hospital Authority's employee benefits system. Councilman Forcom.
Committee reports.
Councilman Toler.
Personnel approved, 6-4-0 against.
Councilmember Berry.
Budget and Finance approved 10-4-0 against.
Councilman Forcom.
Health and Hospitals voted to approve 3-4-0 against, and I move approval.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. RS 2010-1398 approves a state grant to cover administrative costs for the Nashville Career Advancement Center associated with providing programs and services to assist dislocated workers, adults, and youth facing barriers to employment. Councilmember Berry.
Committee reports.
Councilman Toler.
Personnel voted 6-4-0 against.
Councilmember Berry.
Budget and Finance voted 10-4-0 against. I move approval.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. RS 2010-1399 approves a state dislocated worker grant to the Nashville Career Advancement Center. Councilmember Berry.
Committee report, please.
Councilman Toler.
Personnel voted to approve, 6-4-0 against.
Councilmember Berry.
Budget and Finance voted 10-4-0 against, and I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. RS 2010-1400 approves a grant from the Greater Nashville Regional Council to Metro Social Services Commission to provide transportation to eligible seniors. Councilman Forcom.
Committee reports.
Councilmember Berry.
Budget and Finance voted 11-4-0 against.
Councilman Forcom.
Health and Hospitals voted to approve 4-0, none against. I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. RS 2010-1401 approves a business associate agreement between the Metro Board of Health and Nashville Public Television. Councilmember Berry.
Committee report.
Councilman Forcom.
Health and Hospitals voted to approve 4-4, none against.
Councilmember Berry.
Budget and Finance voted 11-4-0 against. I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. RS 2010-1402 approves a business associate agreement between the Metro Board of Health and Belmont University. Councilman Forcom.
Committee reports.
Councilmember Barry.
Budget and Finance voted 11-4, against.
Councilman Forcom.
Health and Hospitals voted to approve 4-4 and 0 against. I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. RS 2010-1403 approves a contract between the Metro Board of Health and Belmont University to provide funding for consultation, technical assistance, and guidance regarding health equity for the Communities Putting Prevention to Work grant. Councilman Forcom.
Committee reports.
Councilmember Barry.
Budget and Finance voted 11-4, 0 against.
Councilman Forcom.
Health and Hospitals voted to approve 4-4, 0 against. And I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. RS 2010-1404 approves a grant to the Metro Board of Health from U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to improve and enhance the IT infrastructure capacity to collect and report data. Councilman Forcom.
Committee reports.
Councilmember Barry.
Budget and Finance voted 11-4, 0 against.
Councilman Forcom.
Health and Hospitals voted to approve 4-4, 0 against. I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. RS 2010-1405 approves a grant from the State Department of Health to the Metro Board of Health to provide tuberculosis control, prevention, and outreach services. Councilmember Forcom.
Committee report.
Councilmember Barry.
Budget and Finance voted to approve 11-4, 0 against.
Councilman Forcom.
Health and Hospitals voted to approve 4-4, 0 against. And I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. Councilman Duvall.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is funded by a grant from the federal government, stimulus funding money, and I cannot, with all good conscience, vote for this bill. So I'm going to vote against this resolution. We have got to stop the spending somewhere, folks. We've got to stop the borrowing. So I'm asking you to vote this bill down, vote this resolution down. Thank you.
We'll need a machine vote. On RS 2010-1405, a machine vote. Madam Clerk.
Ayes 35, noes 1, 1 abstention.
Motion 1405 passes. RS 2010-1406 approves a grant between the Metro Board of Health and Nashville Public Television to provide funding for the production and airing of a documentary on the epidemic of childhood obesity in Tennessee. Councilmember Forcom.
Committee reports.
Councilmember Barry.
Budget and Finance voted to approve 11-4, 0 against.
Councilman Forcom.
Health and Hospitals voted to approve 4-4, 0 against. And I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. RS 2010-1407 approves a contract between the Davidson County Clerk and the State Department of Health to allow the county clerk to issue certified copies of birth certificates. Councilmember Barry.
Committee reports, please.
Councilman Forcom.
Health and Hospitals voted to approve 4-4, 0 against.
Councilmember Barry.
Budget and Finance voted to approve 11-4, 0 against. And I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. RS 2010-1408 approves an annual state grant to the Metro Health Department for operation of the Women, Infants, and Children's Program. Councilmember Barry.
Committee reports, please.
Councilman Forcom.
Health and Hospitals voted to approve 4-4, 0 against.
Councilmember Barry.
Budget and Finance voted to approve 11-4, 0 against, and I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. RS 2010-1409 approves an intergovernmental agreement between the Metropolitan Government and the Metropolitan Transit Authority for the acquisition of the former Peterbilt site located at 430 Myatt Drive. Councilman Forcom.
Committee reports.
Councilmember Berry.
Budget and Finance voted to approve 11-4, 0 against.
Councilman Gatto.
Planning and Zoning approved 6-4, 0 against.
Councilmember Langster.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Public Safety voted to pass 5-4, 0 against.
Councilmember Page.
Transportation and Aviation voted to approve 4 in favor, 0 against, and 1 no vote.
Thank you. Councilman Forcom.
I move for approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. RS 2010-1410 approves a grant from the State Department of Finance and Administration to the Metro Nashville Police Department for Internet Crimes Against Children Unit. Councilmember Langster.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee report, please.
Councilmember Berry.
Budget and Finance voted to approve 11-4, 0 against.
Councilmember Langster.
Public Safety voted to approve 5-4, 0 against, and I move for approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We're now at bills on introduction and first reading. Tonight is the deadline for accepting zoning bills for the next public hearing, and we have one late zoning bill. Councilman Birch.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'm going to ask for suspension of the rules on this bill so it can be considered on first reading. The council will indulge me.
Is there any objection to a suspension of the rules? This changes .22 acres from CS to SP zoning for property located at 1044 Murfreesboro Pike to permit all uses permitted by CS zoning and automobiles repair.
Move for approval on first.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We are now on the motion to consider all bills on introduction and first reading. Councilman Cole.
Thank you, Madam.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Moore.
I had my light on to speak.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I would like BL 2010-77 to be pulled off for consideration separately.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Cole.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. I need to, at the request of Councilman Jameson, who's not here, pull BL 2010-774 for the purpose of withdrawal.
Okay, thank you. BL 2010-770 amends the Metro Code to assign certain duties and responsibilities to the Board of the Fair Commissioners. Councilman Dominy.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen, this bill, I want to move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. Councilman.
Ladies and gentlemen, this bill allows the legislative body of the city of Nashville, that is those of us in this room, to have input on the discussion in what happens with this historic piece of property. It's been there for 106 years, operated and created reserve funds we've operated off of for over a decade. And we need to have a discussion. That's what this bill does, and I'm asking for your vote in support of it.
Thank you. Councilmember Moore.
Vice Mayor, I move that this bill be deferred with a comment, please.
We have a motion and a second. Councilmember Moore.
I'm requesting a deferral of this bill because the subject matter of the bill concerns the fairgrounds property, which is located in my district. Since I was not advised about this bill prior to being filed, I'm requesting a 2-week deferral to allow time to review the bill further before it is referred to the appropriate committees for action. Again, I renew my motion to defer this bill. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second on a one-meeting deferral. Councilmember Craddock.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Move that motion to the table.
We have a motion and a second on a tabling motion. Councilman Craddock.
Vice Mayor, it is not my nature to do this. And when I pushed my button, I did not intend to make a tabling motion. But given the motion that the council lady made, let me read the caption of this bill. The caption of the bill says, an ordinance amending the Metropolitan Code to assign certain duties and responsibilities to the Board of Fair Commissioners of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County. Now,
the caption says nothing about the fairgrounds property. It does speak to responsibilities of the fair board and commissioners. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an issue unlike I have seen in the 7 years I've been in the council, and one of only a handful of issues that I have seen in the 54 years that I have lived in this city. There are over 36,000 names on petitions to stop this. The people of this city do not want this, and the administration continues to drive the train straight forward. And it is time the Council of the Metropolitan Government weighed in on this issue. If we adopt a posture of selling non-performing assets, the municipal auditorium should be next. It has never made money. We give $8 million a year to the Nashville Predators. This is the poor man's convention center, as George Gruen so aptly put it, and we need to weigh in on this. So let's let this bill take the normal course. Let's debate it in the forum that we should, and let's table this motion and get on with the business of this city.
Councilmember Moore. I'm sorry. Councilmember Moore.
My button.
On the tabling motion, you're the only one allowed to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought my mic was off. I still move to defer one meeting.
Okay, we're on the tabling motion right now. We're going to have...
Is it appropriate to read the finance director's on this particular bill? I don't know if there's...
We're on the tabling motion.
Okay. Is there...
Point of order.
Councilman Holland.
When we suspended the rules, Mr. Cooper, for Councilman Birch's bill, and it was voted on, the suspension passed. And then his bill was voted separately, or that bill was included in all bills on first reading?
Separately.
Just want to be sure. Thank you.
We're taking the three that were pulled separately, and then we'll go back to all others on first reading. We are now on the tabling of the deferral motion.
I vote no.
We're going to have a machine vote. This is on the tabling of the deferral motion. Madam Clerk.
Ayes 17, noes 21.
The tabling motion fails. We are now back on the motion to defer one meeting. I have some lights on. Councilman Dominy on the one meeting deferral.
Thank you. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this bill allows us to have discussion. We defer it, we leave the vendors at that facility that currently don't know whether they can promote their events in February or March in limbo. Again, because the only one having any discussion in this is currently the mayor's office. We need to act to have some say-so. There'll be plenty of time to debate this, and it's actually been available for my colleague to review for over a week now. And to say that she hasn't had time to review is a little bit disingenuous, but the thing is, we have the ability to have some input in this, and we'll debate this, and we ought to, as the legislative body for this city, have some say-so in this instead of allowing one particular administration to run roughshod over the people of this district and this city, because that property belongs to the taxpayers of Davidson County, not to one district council member or one district. It belongs to the taxpayers. And I ask that you allow this bill to move forward, and we'll debate this through our committee structure, which is what is set up for us to do that. And I look forward to that. Let's move it forward. And I ask you to support this and defeat the deferral motion, and we'll move it forward and discuss this as we should. It only delays and leaves those vendors in limbo. The fact is, I was told standing right here by a member of the mayor's office that they would allow the vendors to operate through March 31st. The next day, I received phone calls from multiple vendors that somebody else in the mayor's office told them that they would only allow them to go through the end of January. They would think about possibly going to February, maybe to March. Those vendors are stuck in limbo. We are losing tax dollars to Williamson and Wilson County as a result of that. Those vendors can't promote their events, and we're losing tax dollars. I want those tax dollars to stay in Davidson County. And that's what this bill allows us to do, is keep those vendors an opportunity to hold their events and to promote them. Right now they can't, because you can't promote them, maybe. The fairgrounds Expo Center moving to Dillard's building is not a done deal. That's at best a complex process. Dillard's won't sell us the building. They won't lease it to us. They want to sell it. So we have to get the mall to buy it and then lease it to us. It's not a done deal. If we allow the fairgrounds to shut down without an alternate venue, we all lose, and so do all the vendors and the million patrons that came across that property last year, as well as the $60 million economic impact, and the bottom line tax revenue that brought in to the coffers of this city that we were able to use to pay for police officers, firefighters, and to patch our potholes and do our garbage pickup. I ask you to defeat the deferral motion and move this bill forward, and we'll debate it the way it should be within the legislative body of this city.
Councilman Matthews. Councilman Ryman.
Previous question.
We have a motion and a second on previous question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. No. Previous question fails. Councilman Claiborne.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Before I can, in good conscience, vote one way or the other on this, I'd like somebody to explain to me what the term certain duties and responsibilities to the board means. What are those duties and responsibilities that we are voting to assign?
My initial reading of the ordinance, I have not done an analysis yet, but my initial reading of the ordinance is that the additional duties that would be assigned are basically to continue operation of the fairgrounds property and hold a fair at the fairgrounds property in the future, continuing in the future.
Councilman Claiborne.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Crafton.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just wanted to give a little information as it relates to what Councilman Domini said about why he wants to try to move forward to give some of the vendors some certainty. This really hasn't been reported a whole lot, but according to the Fair Board's own numbers, the fairgrounds property and all the related activities have generated approximately $60 million a year in economic impact. So, you know, the convention center, if everything goes as planned, will generate $120 million to $150 million, which is good. That's great. But it's going to cost, $800 to $1 billion. The fairgrounds is generating half that. And listen closely, it's never cost any taxpayer dollars. It's always operated off its own revenues, the money that it's saved in better times it's using now to get it through times that aren't quite as good. So we've got an asset that if a little attention were paid to it and spruced up and made nice and, maybe add a park in there and do some things, it's got a real good economic impact for a very low price tag of $0. So the vendors, to make this happen, they need to have some certainty. And so I think the sooner that we can resolve this issue, the better off not only the vendors will be, but the city will be. We'll know which direction we're moving. So I just wanted to give everybody that information.
Councilman Garrett.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. All I'm telling you is get and talk about tonight's protocol. Normally we don't, or at least in the past, we don't talk about bills on first reading. Everybody in here knew that this was going to be offered to be deferred because of the manner that the way the bill was introduced. Everybody in here knew that. Our council didn't see the bill, so there's nothing in front of us as an analysis to know anything about the bill. Whether you're for it or whether you're against it, it doesn't make any difference. So out of courtesy or out of protocol of the council, I'm going to vote to defer, which is what the council lady asked to do, and everybody in here knew that was going to happen. When it comes back up here on first reading, I certainly agree with individuals who are involved. I'm going to vote for this bill on first reading because it's not a UFO site that we're trying to put here, that we talk about one of the few things that's ever been voted down on first reading. It ought to go through the normal process. So that's all I'm asking anybody. If you want to do how the council normally applies, that's where we ought to go, at least in the next bid. Thank you.
Councilman Gatto.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. I think this is the first time I've really stood up and weighed in on the fairgrounds issue. First of all, to speak to the deferral, I'm not sure what deferring this bill on first reading for 2 weeks does. I think 2 weeks is ample time for everybody in here to study this bill and be ready to discuss it at committees next 2 weeks from now. And then if we need more time, we can defer the bill. We don't have to pass it on second reading, but there's no reason that I see to hold up this train. The fairgrounds issue is not, in my mind, about the property, and my colleague, Councilman Craddock, mentioned George Gruen earlier. George is a constituent of mine, lives in my district, and George and I have had a lot of long conversations about the fairgrounds. He is a vendor that frequents the flea market. He buys and sells, and he does a lot of business there at the flea market. If you want to know exactly what kind of economic impact the fairgrounds brings into the city, you can talk to George. And he has the numbers, and he's done his homework. George and I agree on the fact that there's nothing really historic about the property itself at the fairgrounds. This is not about the fairgrounds property in my mind. What this is about is all those events, as Councilman Craddock so well put it, the poor man's convention center, which is what George Gruen has told me many times. So I really, if the Woman's Building was still there, I remember the night the Woman's Building burned in 1965 during the fair. And when the Woman's Building burned, the historic significance of that property in my mind was diminished. If the Woman's Building were still there, I would be talking about this from an entirely different standpoint. But I am very concerned about these events. I think there has been very little certainty given to the vendors out there. It seems like this is a moving target. We change the date every time we turn around. And quite frankly, I have not heard a single vendor yet stand up and say, oh, the Dillard's building will really work and will serve our purposes. Now, I'm all for doing something in the Hickory Hollow area because they need an economic stimulus and an impact. But putting something there at the Dillard's building that's not going to work is not going to help the economics in the Hickory Hollow area. In fact, I think it will make it worse. I'm not going to vote for this deferral tonight because I think we need to go ahead and have healthy discussion on this bill in 2 weeks. And ladies and gentlemen, what are we afraid of? Why are we afraid to discuss this? I hope you'll vote against the deferral. Thank you.
Councilman Maynard.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'm not going to speak to the merits of this particular bill. I'm not going to speak to the substance of the bill. I'm also not running for election in November. And so I'm speaking at dealing with the protocol and the lack of respect of filing an ordinance or filing legislation without giving consideration to the district person where that land is situated. Now, yes, the fairgrounds is important to all of us, to the entire community, to the entire Middle Tennessee, but you do not file legislation with no consideration to the district council person without even having Mr. Cooper read the legislation and or give him the opportunity to look at the legislation. Now, does he have a right to do that? The sponsor obviously does. But when the council person stated that it was disingenuous on the part of Council Lady Moore to file for a motion for a deferral because she did not have the right to look at it or advance notice of the legislation, I had to stand and say something because I think it's disingenuous to file legislation without allowing Mr. Cooper to see it, without allowing the district councilwoman to see it, and not even giving them notice before filing it. So someone could argue that the sponsor is disingenuous in their filing of the legislation and the way that they did it. I'm going to be voting for deferral on the principle that we should give courtesy to the district council person. I'm not going to file legislation in the sponsor's district asking that the racetrack be situated near his house there, even though I could, because I would give consideration to that district person, and I would make sure I would give courtesy to that district person before filing that legislation. I hope you vote no again, vote yes for the deferral.
We are still on the motion for a one-meeting deferral. Councilmember Hodge.
Thank you. I see no reason to defer this discussion. I think Gail Kerr summed it up very well in her column a couple of weeks ago. The mayor's done a lot of good things, and so has his staff. But on this one, it's been mishandled. It's a failing grade. The staff has been open to suggestions, but I can only speak to the suggestions I've made. We all need to be having input on this because it does not affect just one district. And I see no reason to put off the discussion any longer. It's time to get it aired out and get everybody's ideas on the table. I drove by the Dillard's building. I let the staff know some of the problems I immediately saw. I've got a background in moving logistics. You can move people a whole lot easier than you can dead weight. And that site has some obvious problems. They may be able to be corrected. It may work well. But until we get it out there and everybody have their input, we won't know.
Councilman Dominy.
Thank you. There was a comment made by our at-large member that it was not factual. I said it was disingenuous for her to suggest deferring it because she didn't have time to read it. That's not the statement he made. The fact is, this bill was done the way it was because the council lady already indicated that she was in favor of shutting down the fairgrounds. This bill brings in a discussion of this body as a whole for a property that belongs to all of us and all the residents within our district. And when I was playing sports, you didn't go tell the opposing team what your plays were going to be. You do what you can to make sure that there's a fighting chance for your team. And the fact is, there's some of us who have decided we ought to have an input and say so. And that's what this bill accomplishes. And I regret that it was done the way it was, but I didn't have a lot of choice because the very discussion I had with our council when I brought the bill in was that he's got to go check it out with Rich Riebling to see if it's okay. He made the statement in his office. And I understand that, but if we have to confer with the mayor's office before we file legislation, that telegraphs everything that we're doing as a legislative body to the executive branch of the government, and we ought not have to do that. And I had a problem with that, so that's the reason it was done the way it was. It was done so that we could actually file the bill without telegraphing what was going on, because the people need to have a voice, and so far, the only discussion has been controlled by the mayor's office.
Councilman DeValle.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I wasn't going to get up and vent, but now I'm going to get up and vent. I hear a lot about tax revenue. First of all, I do not want this bill deferred. Absolutely. If we need to defer it down the road, we've got second reading that we can defer it. It needs to get into committee. And if Ms. Moore needs something fixed on it, or Mr. Dominy needs something fixed, I need something fixed, we can fix it. This is about we the people. The people of Davidson County have been very clear about this. Absolutely clear. They don't want the fairgrounds closed. And we need to empower the Fair Board to continue to function until we have come to an agreement as to what we're going to do. We absolutely need that. I've heard George Gruen's name pitched out quite a few times. George has done a lot of work on this. He sent all of you emails. Anything that was said here, every one of you had visibility to those emails. He went around to the last flea market There wasn't a single vendor that didn't sign a petition to keep the flea market at the fairgrounds. Now, they're vendors who, what do they know? They come from out of state. I don't think that's all true. A lot of them are right here locally. A lot of them. And then listen to your residents. I had over 98% when we dealt with this fairgrounds issue before in my district that contacted me that said they didn't want the fairgrounds closed. I want this bill to move forward. I want it to go forward now, get it in this committee, and let's hash out the problems there. Our vice mayor has made this possible for us. She's strong with our committees and has supported those committees. Let's give the system and the process a chance to work. Thank you so much.
Councilman Holloman?
Previous question.
We have a motion and a second on previous question. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Previous question passes. We're now on the motion to defer one meeting, and we're going to have a machine vote. Madam Clerk?
Ayes 23, noes 15.
The one meeting deferral passes. We're now back to BL 2010-774, makes provisions to 0.29 acres of a planned unit development overlay located at 501 Gallatin Avenue within the Gallatin Pike Specific Plan Improvement District. Councilman Cole.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. I need to move to withdraw 774 since we no longer have the beer PUD process.
We have a motion and a second to withdraw. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We're now back on all other bills on introduction and first reading. Is there a motion for their approval? A motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We're now at bills on second reading. BL 2010-699 amends 219.9 acres of the Villages of Riverwood Urban Design Overlay District located at the southwest corner of Hoggett Ford Road and Dodson Chapel Road, classified RM9 and MUN, to modify the conditionals pertaining to the traffic impact study. Councilman Stanley.
Committee reports, please.
Councilman Gatto.
Planning and Zoning voted to disapprove by a vote of 3-2 and 1 abstention.
Thank you. Councilman Stanley.
I would move approval with a couple of comments.
Do you want to move the substitute?
Yes, I do.
Okay, we have a motion on the substitute. Is there a second? Comments on the substitute, Councilman?
Yes, Mr. Cooper, can you just tell the council what the substitute is going to include?
The substitute would require the Public Works Department to conduct an updated traffic impact study within 90 days after the filing of each final site plan for this development, and the Public Works Department would have to submit a report to the council as to infrastructure improvements that needed to be made in the area.
Councilman.
I appreciate your comments. Ladies and gentlemen, I would just ask that this bill be approved at this time. This is a urban design overlay. It's going to be approximately 3 times more dense than the previous 2002 development that was disapproved by the Planning Commission. But it was approved. But I feel like if it's going to be approved, then definitely the conditions that were set forth by the Public Works Department for the developer, they are minimal at best. They have had little, if any, impact on providing relief to the citizens, the existing citizens that live in the area. I was going to mention the fact that yesterday at the committee meeting, Mr. Bernhardt, the director of the Department of Planning, he mentioned the fact that he did not want to set a precedent by allowing a revision, by revising this urban design overlay. But, however, I want to inform the council at this time that on September 14th, just 21 days ago, there was a revision that was approved unanimously by the Planning Commission that would reduce the size of the lots in this Riverwood UDO from 2,000 square feet to 1,600 square feet. That was a substantial revision. This revision just simply asked the Metro Public Works Department to submit a traffic study with each new phase of this development because the public streets on which this traffic is going to be generated are wholly substandard. It's a pathetic position that we have when developers, private developers, look at public streets and then they look forth to the metro government and they say it's your responsibility to upgrade the public streets. I want to make sure that these upgrades are completed. I'm not against the development. I don't think anyone that lives in the community is against the development. But I'd like to see this development, I'd like to see the Metro Council updated continually on the status of the road systems that are going to be heavily impacted by this development alone. So with that, I'm asking that the Metro Council support this at this time. I will mention that the Planning Commission voted this down. And originally, the bill was asking that the developer do the traffic study with each new phase. That's when the Planning Commission voted it down because they had a letter that was contradictory in nature signed by about 4 department heads in Metro Nashville. But they didn't even give me any indication of this letter being in their attendance. And they based their decision wholly on this one letter. So I'm asking that this bill be approved at this time. And I ask also that there be a machine vote at this time. I want the public, the community, the resident citizens of Davidson County to understand that this is not going to be an old school political process. I want to see the council as a whole, I'd like to have them cast their vote in favor of having this bill approved. Thank you.
Councilman, currently we're voting on the proposed substitute. Do you want a machine vote on the substitute?
That's the substitute was the one that the committee voted on yesterday.
Right, we've got to approve the substitute and then approve the bill as substitute.
I would move approval of the substitute.
Do you want a machine vote on the substitute?
No, I don't.
Okay. All in favor of the substitute, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Substitute passes.
Now, I would just ask that there be a machine vote on the bill itself. I will say one last thing, that there's a little over a recent traffic count by the state. The Public Works engineers have informed me that the Dodson Chapel Road can accommodate no more than 12,000 automobiles. Recently, there was a traffic count done by the state, and it showed a little over 7,500 automobiles. This development, once it's complete, is going to generate over 14,000 additional automobiles onto the already 7,000 additional automobiles, and it's going to designate this public street as a overcapacity street. So I would ask, because of the revision that was offered and was approved, I would ask that each council member support this bill at this time, and we take responsibility for any development that's approved in Metro Nashville. Thank you.
I need 4 other requests for a machine vote. Aye. Okay. Councilman Matthews, you wish to speak on the bill as substituted?
Yes, thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. I had the privilege of actually being in the Planning and Zoning Committee yesterday and just sitting in because I had a bill. But I had a question for the sponsor. With this amendment and with the substitute, are we actually asking Public Works to perform a service that developers would normally perform themselves in doing this traffic study? And if so, why?
Yes, it would be the responsibility of Metro Nashville because you're looking at specifically public streets. And private developers do not look upon public streets as their responsibility to upgrade. It's been my experience that private developers, they will meet certain conditions set forth by Metro officials, but they will not make not make substantial upgrades to the public infrastructure. Now, I think that a traffic study done by Metro is going to update the council, keep it updated on what the status is of the public roads as the development proceeds. And that's simply what this bill does. It just asks that the Metro Council be updated on what the status is of the roads that are already operating over capacity as the development proceeds. So with that, I ask approval.
Councilman Gatto.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. I rise as the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Committee. I was not intending to speak on this bill, but I think I'd be remiss if I didn't relay some facts as to what we discussed yesterday. The discussion yesterday centered a lot around Public Works and whether or not this creates a precedent going forward that for us to do these types of traffic studies for other developers. The councilman makes many good points. He's absolutely right about the roads. They are substandard. It's arguable as to whether or not this original UDO bill contained enough requirements for improvements in the infrastructure or whether it did not. That's not before us to debate. I know that some of our department chairmen actually think it was maybe a little lacking in some of those, but that's water under the dam at this, or water under the bridge at this point, or over the dam, whichever analogy you want to use. So again, I just rise to let you know that Public Works has some pretty tough issues with trying to do this, both from a manpower, from a money standpoint, and especially from a precedent-setting standpoint. And I will let you weigh those facts as you deliberated whether or not to vote for this bill. Thank you.
Councilman Holland.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Move the previous question.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor of previous question, please say aye. Opposed, no. Previous question passes. We now need a machine vote on 2010-699. Madam Clerk.
Ayes 14, noes 24, abstentions.
Motion for approval fails. Next is BL 2010-760, establishes the property tax relief program for low-income elderly residents of Metro government for fiscal year 2010-2011. Councilmember Berry.
I'm sorry, I was congratulating myself that I had voted with Councilman Tigert on something. Okay. The committee approved 11-4-0 against, and I move approval.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no.
Must have voted wrong.
Motion passes. Next is BL 2010-761, amends the Metro Code to authorize the presence of pet dogs in outdoor dining areas of restaurants. Councilmember Bennett.
Committee reports, please.
Councilman Forcom.
Health and Hospitals voted to approve 3-4, 1 against.
Thank you. Councilmember Bennett.
Move approval, please.
Have a motion and a second. Is this a motion on the amendment?
I'm sorry, I forgot the amendment. Can we move the amendment, please?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the amendment, please say, I'm sorry, Councilman Duvall.
Can we read the amendment, please?
The amendment makes several changes that were requested by the Health Department. It clarifies that this is actually an annual permit fee. It requires that all dogs on the property have their current rabies vaccination and have the license tag they're required to wear. And it also clarifies that the Board of Health will have the authority over both the restaurant and the dog owner as far as enforcement of the ordinance.
Any other discussion on the amendment? Councilman Hunt?
I was just wondering, do the restaurant have the ability to opt out? How does that work?
This would solely be at the instigation of each restaurant. They would have to go and apply for a permit and receive a permit. So they're under no obligation to allow dogs. It's permissive in nature only.
Well, thank you.
Okay, all in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Opposed? The amendment passes.
Please move the bill as amended.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor of the bill as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next is BL 2010-762, amends the Metro Code pertaining to the prosecution of offenders of high weeds and excessive vegetation provisions in the code. Councilman Jernigan.
Committee report.
Councilman Forcom.
Health and hospitals, at the wish of the sponsor, voted to defer one meeting, 4-0 against.
Councilman Jernigan.
Defer one meeting, please.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. One meeting deferral passes. BL 2010-763 amends the Metro Code pertaining to noise in certain areas of downtown Nashville. Councilmember Gilmore.
I would like to ask that it be deferred one meeting.
Okay, I need to get committee reports first. Councilmember Langster.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee voted 5-0 to defer one meeting, please.
Thank you. Councilmember Wilhoit.
Yes, deferred as requested by the sponsor.
Thank you. Councilmember Gilmore.
Yes, I just wanted to give a brief explanation. Councilman Jamison wanted to discuss it with some of his constituents downtown. However, on the side of downtown that I represent, the constituents are really concerned about noise early in the morning. So we are going to defer it one meeting. Thank you so much.
Have a motion and a second for a one meeting deferral. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2010-764 authorizes the Industrial Development Board to negotiate and accept payments in lieu of ad valorem taxes for the benefit of the Omni Nashville LLC. Councilmember Ryman.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I believe there's an amendment. John, you want to explain the amendment?
Let me get committee reports first.
All right,
Councilmember Berry.
Budget and Finance voted to approve as amended, 11-4-0 against.
Councilman Ryman.
Convention Tourism Committee voted 8-0 against.
Thank you. Mr. Cooper.
The amendment first makes a technical change clarifying that the ordinance is actually authorizing the IDB to enter into this agreement. And then it also adds two protections for the benefit of the council that the council office requested. It specifies that the 37.5% pilot payment, which is 37.5% of the taxes that otherwise would be paid, are expressly for metro schools. That was always the intent. This just adds that language to the ordinance. And it also incorporates the form of the pilot agreement into the ordinance to ensure that there aren't any changes made between the time the council approves it now and the IDB considering it.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second on the amendment. Councilman Adkins, do you want to be recognized on the amendment? Okay, Councilman Garrett on the amendment.
Madam Chair, lady, I'd just like for John to explain what pilot means. Just
stands for payment in lieu of taxes.
Okay, seeing no other discussion on the amendment, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The amendment passes. Councilman Ryman.
I move the bill as amended with a...
Have a motion and a second. Councilman Adkins.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I need to abstain. Thank you.
So noted. Councilman Stanley.
I appreciate the fact that the committee chairs have, they're going to be sponsoring a meeting on the 12th of October regarding this bill. And specifically, they're going to have representatives from the Omni Hotel they'll be at the meeting. I have a great deal of respect for the Omni Hotel Corporation, and their operation here could bring a lot of money to the city. But I want everyone to understand this, and that is that this agreement that was reached between Metro Nashville and the Omni Hotel organization, Section 3.3 deals specifically with giving the Omni Hotel Omni Hotel Corporation the ultimate authority to take applications. They say that this development is going to generate over 300 jobs from the site, and 250 of them are supposed to come from the metropolitan statistical area. 200 of them are supposed to be residents of the Davidson County area, but it's going to be the responsibility of the hotel to take applications and to designate where the residence is. Are these people, individuals, legal residents? One of the biggest issues that faces our nation at this time is illegal immigration. I know a lot of corporations are right at the top regarding hiring of illegal immigrants. I don't want the citizens of this Davidson County, and specifically this metropolitan area, to be thrown out simply because they want cheap labor and because of non-unionized workers to come in here and be hired in response. I can't support this bill because of that. But also, I want to remind everyone this. This bill, this analysis, and this bill also mentions the Dell computer deal. I was on the council in 1998 when the Industrial Development Board gave Dell Industrial Bill a 40-year property tax exemption on the Central State site off Murfreesboro Pike. That Dell deal has not been a benefit for the city. It has not generated near the projected revenue that was told the council at that time. I didn't support that bill. I can't support this bill because you never can tell. Even though this is not a full property tax exemption, it is only a 2/3 property tax exemption. I still think that we have an obligation, first and foremost, to listen to what Omni Hotel has to say and what the other metropolitan authorities have to say regarding hiring of employees at the Omni Hotel, and also what impact this property tax exemption is going to give to Omni Hotel and what it is going to cost the city. Because I will say that 40-year property tax exemption that Dale received in 1998 cost the city $100 million. And Dale has not generated the revenue to repay back that $100 million it received from that property tax exemption. So I will let you know that I cannot support this bill at this time, but I will be at the meeting on the 12th. Thank you.
Councilman Duvall?
I was just going to yield to Mr. Stanley if he needed more time.
He had some left and he stopped. Councilman Holland?
Mr. Cooper, after that, what's this bill about? I kind of got confused.
This is the equivalent of a property tax abatement for Omni for 20 years. It would be a 62.5% abatement. The subject matter concerning the hiring of Davidson County employees, that will all be part of the project agreement between the Convention Center Authority and Omni. And the council will be considering that when it's filed, presumably for the next meeting. But this bill is specifically for the payment in lieu of taxes.
Thank you.
Councilman Crafton?
Thanks, Vice Mayor. having not actually seen the full proposal, it's kind of hard to make a decision, but I will say this. The amount of value that the property is going to be increased by the construction of the hotel as opposed to what it earns now in property or before the city bought it or condemned it or whatever, I would have to guess would generate a lot more money. Even the 38% that we're keeping, was that, I guess that's how much the budget's for schools. Is that about it, basically? 37 and 38, so it's protecting the school funding basically, but I would have to say probably that 38% that we're going to get is more property tax than is generated by it now.
Correct.
You know, so I think I'm okay with that portion of the deal. I haven't seen all of it, but if you'll remember, I was probably a pretty strenuous opponent on the project itself, but at this point, like was said earlier, we have, you know, water over the dam, and we've got to try to put this on the best possible footing to make it successful for the city at this point. And we were told that it could not succeed without this hotel, and so I'm looking forward, before I cast my final vote, to see all the specifics and analyze it, but just strictly from this property tax abatement, which is what this part is, I'm satisfied that once the hotel is built, it would be generating more property tax, even if we just get the third, than it would have had before. So I'm going to be voting yes on second reading, just because the math works to me in this situation.
Councilman Duvall.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I guess I should have went ahead and talked anyway. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to support this bill. I oppose the convention center, but I will tell you right now that I love Nashville and I'm going to support Nashville. And it is absolutely critical that this convention center be successful. And I'm certainly not going to get in the way of its success. I believe the Omni Hotel will help it. So I'm going to support the bill. I want everybody to know that some of the guys that were against the convention center now are on the side to let's move forward, let's put that behind us, and let's do what's best for Nashville and our residents. So thank you, Madam.
Thank you. Councilman Ryman, did you wish to speak?
I think Councilman Stanley said what I was going to say about the meeting next Tuesday at 4 o'clock.
Okay. All in favor of the bill as amended, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2010-765 authorizes Metro Water Services to acquire flood-prone properties pursuant of a hazard mitigation grant program using federal and state funds upon adoption of a resolution receiving 21 affirmative votes. Councilmember Berry.
Committee reports, please.
Councilman Hodge.
Public Works approved 6-4, 0 against.
Councilmember Berry.
Budget and Finance approved 11-4, 0 against, and I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2010-766 clarifies the status of former employees of Metropolitan Convention Center Convention. Councilman Toller.
Thank you. Committee reports, please.
Personnel.
Personnel approved 6-0, and therefore I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2010-767 names Tucker Road Bridge over Whites Creek in honor of Robert Woods. Councilman Matthews.
Committee report, please.
Councilman Gatto.
Planning and Zoning approved 6-4, 0 against.
Councilman Hodge.
Public Works approved 6-4, 0 against.
Councilman Matthews.
Yes, I'd like to move approval with a brief explanation, please.
Have a motion and a second. Councilman.
Thank you. During the May 2010 flood, there were many people across the city that lost many things, but Mr. Robert Wood, at age 74, lost his life. And his family served a great loss, and the community lost a great member that served our community. He was a crusader, actually, against the flooding that occurred on Whites Creek before the flood occurred. He lived at 3301 West Hamilton Road, and I think the community will be pleased. I know his family will be pleased that we're naming this bridge in honor of Mr. Robert Woods and the loss of his life right there on Tucker Road in between West Hamilton Boulevard. He was a member of Cathedral Praise Church, a committed member of the community, and I want to do this, and I'm honored to be able to do this and naming this bridge after him. I do want to yield the rest of my time to Councilman Maynard, who is my co-sponsor on this bill.
Thank you, Councilman Matthews. On the day of Sunday, we received a call from Mr. Woods' daughter that he was missing. I had no idea that there was flooding on West Hamilton Road. I saw the flooding in Bellevue and other parts of the city. When we went out there, I saw Councilman Matthews out there as well in the rain, and we together went door to door looking for Mr. Woods' body. We could not find Mr. Woods' body. He was trying to help others when the waters washed him away. The volunteers that were there from Knoxville and Chattanooga who were looking for his body as well as his family members. Unfortunately, we could not find Mr. Woods' body till the next day. But what happened with the loss of his life, though, the community rallied, the community came together. Once they knew that Mr. Woods had lost his life, the community just began to come together in West Hamilton. And from his loss, though, there was a strengthening of the community and making sure that every life and every household received the resources to rebuild. Only one family has moved back into their home where the house has been completely rebuilt. So there's still work for us to do. And as we memorialize the bridge, as we remember Mr. Woods and celebrate his life, let us remember that there are so many people who still need our help. And I just say I appreciate the support and also of this council, and appreciate the leadership of Councilman Matthews.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2010-736 amends 27.41 acres of the Gallatin Pike Improvement District specific plan for properties located along Main Street, Gallatin Pike, and Gallatin Avenue, and by replacing mixed-use land use category of the Gallatin Pike SP. Councilman Holland.
All committees having reported, 3 public meetings been held. I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2010-747 amends the Metro Code pertaining to the street access requirements for artisan distilleries selling commemorative bottles of alcohol produced on site. Councilmember Gilmore.
If all committee reports are in, I move for approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes.
Thank you.
BL 2010-748 amends the Metro Code regarding the operation and parking of large vehicles on local streets. Councilman Jernigan.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Move approval, please.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2010-749 amends Metro Code pertaining to the booting of vehicles. Councilman Craddock.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Neighbors, move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2010-750 authorizes the Industrial Development Board to negotiate and accept payments in lieu of ad valorem taxes for the benefit of Health Spring, Inc. Councilman Stein.
Move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2010-751 readopts the Metro Code to include supplemental and replacement pages containing certain ordinances of a general and permanent nature enacted on or before February 16, 2010. Councilman Ryman.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I move for approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2010-752 amends the official street and alley acceptance and maintenance map by abandoning a portion of McGavick Street. Councilor Gilmore.
Move for approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2010-755 approves a memorandum of understanding between the Metro Police Department and the International Association of Chiefs of Police regarding participation in an officer injury study. Councilmember Langster.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. All committees reporting in favor of, I move for approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2010-756 authorizes the acquisition of property by negotiation or condemnation necessary for the 28th Avenue, 31st Avenue Connector Project. Councilmember Langster.
Move for approval with an explanation, please.
Have a motion and a second. Councilmember Langster.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Neighbors. Ladies and gentlemen of the council, I want you to know that I care a great deal about the concerns of the constituents in District 21. They are the utmost importance to me. I have been accused of being too protective of District 21, so I will agree to that. On Thursday, this past week, I held a district-wide meeting at St. James Missionary Baptist Church on this very subject, and it was very well attended. District Director Billy Lynch attended, along with his staff members Jenna Smith, Benny Word, and Director Don Reed. And they were well received. Mr. Lynch even advised the constituents that anyone who wanted to come and talk to him one-on-one, that his door was open. And I, too, also expressed the willingness to discuss further any aspects of the project with anyone that requested it. I am going to have a meeting at the Board of Parks in the boardroom, hopefully very soon as I can get confirmation from Public Works. There have been at least 7 meetings dealing with affected property owners, and few have expressed some objection, very few. Rather, property owners have expressed that they are excited about this development that is coming, and they very strongly look forward to the work that's ahead of us. This is not the last meeting on this project. I'd like to thank Director Jenna Cole of the Arts Commission. There will be a committee formed made up of property owners, Tennessee State School of Art, and Vanderbilt University School of Art. There's still much work to do, and I look forward to working with everyone. No one should be left out. But let me assure you, I respectfully request your vote and support in passing this ordinance tonight. And with that, Madam Vice Mayor, I renew my motion for passage.
Councilmember Maynard.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I promised Councilman Stein I'd take 30 seconds, but for a preacher, that means 3 times 30. I want to first of all state that this is historic, and I really appreciate the leadership of the council, the vice mayor, the mayor, and for those persons who are voting for this today. It is historic because in many cities, there were either roads, bridges, or railroads that separated certain communities. And for a long time, since 1995, I've heard about the need for us to connect 28th to West End Avenue for economic development, but also not just for North Nashville, but economic vibrancy also for the West End area, so that more consumers can get access to West End, Vanderbilt, and other places. This is historic because we are finally taking action after all these years when citizens have asked that we connect 28th to West End. It is also historic because of the history of having separations of particular communities by roads, by landmarks, and by railroads. So I'm proud of this council, and I'm proud of the mayor and the administration for us to vote to make sure that we do away with the barriers that have been here for years. And this is very much something that we should celebrate as a progressive city. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Wilhoit.
Yeah, I too want to stand and commend all the council members, but I definitely want to commend Council Lady Edith Langster in moving forward with this piece of legislation. I attended school at Tennessee State University, and I know how the economic impact of going from one side of Nashville to the other would be greatly influenced by this connector. I also want to say that, you know, folks like the Buffalo Soldiers, which is an organization as well as the Untouchables, who stayed with this project through time, and they were very, very, very tenacious in making sure that this came to fruition. People like Mr. Arnett Bodenhammer and the Sweats, they talked about this as I was coming to council, and we're so glad to see that they can see this in their lifetime to make sure that this happens. So I want to stand here and commend the council person before, Council Lady Langster and Council Lady Langster herself, as well as community members such as the Buffalo Soldiers and the Untouchables, who have stayed very much to this project to the very end. And of course, I want to thank the administration, the mayor, and others, and as well, of course, Mayor Carl Dean, for moving forward with these things, because those are his constituents too, and I appreciate him being committed to that. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2010-757 authorizes the acquisition of 3 drainage easements and 25 temporary construction easements for the construction of sidewalks and associated improvements along the west side of Oakwood Avenue between Sladen Avenue and Bullock Avenue. Councilmember Bennett.
Move approval, please.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Memorializing resolution, RS 2010-1411, urges the Tennessee Valley Authority to implement an energy efficiency plan that commits to reduce electricity consumption by at least 1% per year for the next 5 years. Councilman Cole.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. Move approval with, committee report, please.
Councilman Hodge.
Public Works approved, 7-4, 0 against.
Thank you, Councilman Cole.
Move approval with a very brief explanation.
Have a motion and a second.
And I will be
Councilman.
less than 30 seconds. Simply, the TVA, Tennessee Valley Authority, currently has a draft integrated resource plan that's out for public comment. This simply goes on record as asking for a modest increase in their targets for energy conservation. The more we conserve, the less we'll need nuclear and coal in the future, and sincerely hope you'll support us in this effort. Thank you.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Councilman Tigert.
I want to offer congratulations. Councilman Garrett has offered to Coach Dooley to go up there and help the football staff count to 13.
Okay, back to BRS 2010-1411. Any opposed? Motion passes. Is there a motion to adjourn? All in favor, please say aye.